Good evening and welcome back to 1010 News, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Brian Kim and there's a bit of a change up this week. Our main anchor Andy Hong is not available due to conflicts with school and schedule. So let's get right into the news with Katie June reporting about the incident in France. Katie?
Devastating news in France this week as several terrorist attacks within the city of Paris has taken at least 129 lives and injured 352 people. The nation has declared a state of emergency and tightened its security. On Friday night, gun attacks and bombings have taken place in 5 major places, one in the city of France as a soccer game between France and Germany was in progress. There were at least 2 bombings outside of the venue. The bombings were barely audible in the stadium, but many outside the venue rushed to find 3 attackers dead. One attacker tried to get into the stadium with a ticket, but was stopped by a security guard. The attacker then detonated the bomb, but the security guard was safe. The teams and spectators were advised to stay inside the stadium until things were under control. Meanwhile, there was a massive shooting at a rock concert in the Bataclan concert hall. Several gunmen rushed into the concert hall and started shooting everyone, killing at least 80 people. The witnesses have described the shooting as endless, and the way they survived was to lay down under the seats and act dead. Other shootings have occurred at 3 busy restaurants and bars and killed nearly 40 more civilians. Residents near the shooting sites have said that they heard a series of gunfire so rapid and endless that it sounded like fireworks. Neighboring country Belgium has increased its security as well and has arrested several people thought to be related with the attacks. The attackers of Stade de France had Egyptian and Syrian passports, as the Bataclan attacker was a Frenchman. It has also been confirmed that the attacks were coordinated by the 3 teams. However, ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attacks. In response to the tragedy, the world has shown great support for France and its people by lighting the national colors of the French flag onto great monuments and posting prayers and support onto social media. Our condolences and prayers are with France and the people. More terrible news in France as a high-speed train derails near the city of Strasbourg and kills at least 10 people. The train was on a test run in the town of Equersham on the new Paris-Strasbourg line. There were 49 technicians in the train when it derailed, caught on fire, and fell into a canal. There were 11 severe injuries, and experts have determined the cause of the derailment as excessive speed. The new line is scheduled to be in service starting next year, but it is unknown if the plans remain the same, as a junior transport minister and ecology minister will visit the scene soon. Belgium has sent out a message for the Belgians in Burundi to leave the country if their presence is not essential. There are about 500 reported Belgians in the country of Burundi. Burundi is in a greatest crisis and turmoil since the end of its 12-year civil war in 2005. There has been ongoing beatings and acts of violence within the nation. The violence has also led the European Union to reduce the number of staff in the delegation, but it will continue functioning as normal. The United Nations have expressed its activity in trying to help the nation achieve stability and peace, but has to undergo many voting processes in the Security Council. The nation is currently the second poorest country in the world with a population of over 10 million people. We hope for good news in Burundi and that the national crisis will settle soon. Meanwhile, it has been reported that a United States airstrike on Libya has potentially killed the Libyan Islamic State leader Abdul Nabil. The Pentagon has announced that the strike is a warning to the ISIS leaders that it will follow wherever they operate. The death of Abdul will slow down the activity of ISIS in Libya, as they are now unable to recruit new members, establish bases, and plan attacks on the United States. Libya has been in chaos for the past 4 years and has been in turmoil against many groups, such as the Islamic State. The airstrike was a first against an ISIS leader in Syria, and the strikes had been reported to occur in areas controlled by the ISIS militants. Although this incident occurred on the same day as the Paris attacks, the two have no correlation, and their airstrike was hours before the Paris attacks. Devastating news in Beirut, Lebanon, as there were 2 suicide bombings that killed over 40 people and injured 239. One of the attackers was a Lebanese ISIS recruit who failed to detonate a suicide bomb and was taken under custody. He told that he and 3 other attackers came from Syria 2 days before the bombings. The explosions detonated within 490 feet or were away from each other. First-hand witnesses have said that the streets were filled with shattered glass, blood, and chaos. Lebanon has announced that they will hold a day of mourning for the victims of the bombing. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Katie. There was a great uproar in the streets of Seoul, South Korea, as protesters gathered up for one of the biggest street rallies of the country. The protesters have gathered to protest for the resignation of the current South Korean president, Park Geun-hye. President Park was elected as Korea's first female president 2 years ago, but many people have been disagreeing with her plans to make labor markets more flexible by allowing more freedom for the employers. Others have protested against the imposition of state-approved school books. As the protesters got closer to the presidency, the police force used tear gas and water cannons to barricade the protesters. Meanwhile, in Japan, there was an earthquake of a magnitude of 7.0 that hit the country's southwestern coast. The strong earthquake has caused a small tsunami to hit the southern Nakanoshima Island. There has been no reports of damage and injuries, but people are still cautious about the sea. Back in 2011, there was a great earthquake and tsunami which left more than 18,000 people dead and missing. Now for some good news this week. The British charity telethon Children in Need raised a record-breaking £37 million. This overtakes the previous year's total of £32.6 million. Stars like Selena Gomez, Years and Years, and Tom Jones performed in the annual fundraising telethon. However, veteran presenter Terry Wogan, who hosted every telethon of Children in Need since 1980, was unable to join this year's event due to health issues. The £32 million raised last year had helped over 500,000 children in 2,500 projects within the United Kingdom. With the extra £5 million in addition to the previous year's total, BBC can help more children than they could ever before. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the U.S. Supreme Court has announced that they would consider revisiting an abortion case from 1992. The abortion law in Texas places high standards on clinics and puts new requirements on doctors that provide abortions. Many people have argued that the law is only to make the abortion procedures harder to attain by closing abortion clinics. A provision of the law requires the clinics to have hospital-grade facilities, which are too costly for most clinics. Another mandate of the law requires the doctor to admit patients to hospitals within 30 miles of the clinic. Activists have appealed that the amount of clinics in Texas, the second largest state in the nation, has dropped incredibly. Before the law was passed in 2013, there were 42 clinics, but now there are only 19 clinics after the first provision of the law has been implemented. If the rest of the law is implemented, there is expected to be only 10 clinics within the state. This June, however, the Supreme Court voted to grant an emergency appeal from the clinics at risk of closing due to the new laws, which are about to take effect on July 11th. The court will hear the arguments in this case earlier next year and likely make a decision 4 months before the U.S. presidential election. Now for this week's science news, new research has shown that a new STI, sexually transmitted infection, could have affected hundreds of thousands of people. Mycoplasma genitalium, or MG, has very few known symptoms, but is confirmed that it is sexually transmitted. It is estimated that 1% of the people in the United Kingdom aged 16 to 44 are infected. MG has previously caused discharge, testicular pains, pelvic pain, and bleeding after sex. However, most people have experienced no symptoms. Experts believe MG plays a role in pelvic inflammatory disease, infertility, and ectopic pregnancy. Further studies and research, however, is necessary to understand the true implications of the infection. And that was the Ten10 news of this week. I'm Brian Kim, and thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with more of your top 10 news in 10 minutes. Stay educated.